What's up everyone, welcome back to Let's Play Dark Souls. Today we're going to revisit a familiar area that has changed just a little bit. And we're going to find some pretty cool stuff there. Oop, almost missed the drop off. So you need to have the shortcut up from the Undead Parish unlocked to get here. Let me just line the roll up. And you roll off onto this little pillar and it leads up to a set of stairs. But before we go all the way up, have to roll down onto this roof, onto the terrace, and grab a key, which is really important to get. And hey, there's Snuggly! Snuggly the Crow, the distant cousin to... Sparkly? I forgot his name. Sparkly the Crow from Demon Souls. Oh, wrong way. Now we're going to go back up to the same shortcut we just took and roll off the same ledge that we just rolled off of. And this path coming up, by the way, blew my mind when I first found it. It was one of the coolest hidden pathways that I found. And the item that we find inside once we get where we're going leads to a secret that blows me away even more. And while I'm setting all that up, because there's going to be a little bit of waiting coming up, I want to talk about something that a gentleman by the name of Iro Matilla sent me in a PM a few days ago, and he was talking to me about a fix called Dsfix, which I was previously aware of. I don't use it sheerly out of laziness, and I just wanted to talk about it because it's really handy for those of you playing Dark Souls on the PC, while we're sitting here curled up in a ball trying to pretend to be an egg that Snuggly will carry off to a mysterious old place. It's a really handy tool for those of you who play Dark Souls on the PC. So when From was creating the Prepare to Die edition of the game, the PC port with all of the Artorias DLC, they admitted that they really didn't know what they were doing with PC development, that they didn't have much knowledge of it, that they were really inexperienced. And the port was kind of janky. For starters, if you're looking at things, they seem a bit off. And you might not be able to put your finger on why, because when you go into the options, everything looks right. If you're playing on at 1080p, you can select that option and it sticks. Everything seems like it should work just fine, but something might not quite add up to you. And the reason for that is that the game renders everything at a maximum resolution of 1024 by 720 on the PC. Even when you have 1080p selected in the options, and the game is also capped at 30 frames per second. So there was a NeoGAF user named Durant, I think, who put out a fix for the resolution, and it came out literally hours after the game came out. And the fix is called Dsfix, and I'll link to it in the description. But before I carry on with that explanation, let me just figure out what to do with all these souls real quick. And now that I've invested my souls wisely, I can get back on track. So I think I was saying that because the game is locked at 30 frames per second, that Dsfix can also act as a frame rate unlocker. But from what I've heard, it causes the already hilariously wonky Havoc physics to go completely batshit. And I've also heard that it's bannable if you're playing online, if you're playing through Games for Windows Live with the frame rate unlocked. And I don't know if it's because that section of the fix makes a more significant alteration to the game files, or really what the reason for that is. But if you think about it, it does kind of provide an unfair advantage since you have better response times at 60 frames per second. As a really rough average, a game running at 60 FPS is usually going to have a response time of about 4/60ths of a second, while the input delay of a game at 30 FPS is around 2 to 3 times higher, sometimes quadruple or even more. And this isn't exactly covering, for all of the feats of poor and great programming that cuts into or adds input delay with, things like unique rendering methods. And then there are also variables like CRT versus LCD, and if you're using an LCD, which you probably are, There's also the factor of whether or not you're using the gaming mode on that LCD, which is meant to minimize input latency from the TV. But as a rule of thumb, 60 FPS is much, much more responsive than a game running at 30 FPS, which is something so subtle you might not ever realize it otherwise. You'll just notice when a game isn't being quite so tight and responsive, and when it's being sluggish, or when everything feels really precise. And it's the reason I think that a lot of games will make some really hefty visual sacrifices to hit that 60 FPS benchmark. It's not just a visual thing, it's not just making it look more fluid, it actually affects the gameplay. Especially Twitch-based stuff, or stuff where reaction time is really important. Console versions of Call of Duty famously natively render everything at, I think, like 600 or 640p, not even quite 720p, or something to that effect, and they upscale it so that all of their games can hit 60 FPS, which is a little fun fact you might not be aware of. Now, red Titanite chunk. I was hoping for a Black Knight shield to complement my very nice new sword, but I'll take some red Titanite. There you are, Oscar. I forgot his name earlier when I was going through the tutorial. This guy is Oscar of Astora. And you might be wondering, what the hell is he doing around? We killed him earlier. We saw him die. Death in Demon Souls is kind of a transient concept. But before I talk about that, let's talk a little bit about Oscar and his mysterious origins, and the fact that he's about to give me one of my favorite shields because it resists about 80% of incoming magical damage. There it is, the Crushed Shield. Not a lot is known about Oscar, except that he's an elite knight of Astora, the same land that Solaire, Andre, Anastasia, all of them hail from that same land as Oscar. Otherwise, he's a bit of an enigma. Michelle Kobayashi dug up a bunch of files that indicate a lot of content with Oscar was cut out. And there also seemed to be a damned if you do, damned if you don't type of moment with him that would have come later in the game with him, where he goes berserk and either attacks you for aligning with either Darkstalker. I think his original purpose was in seeking out the Bells of Awakening as if he were the chosen undead, which of course is a myth. This could explain why he goes berserk in the cut content, and because maybe he finds out that there's no such thing as the chosen undead, and that his journey was predicated upon a lie put forward by Frampt. Or it could be because I said it was a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. The alternative reason for him freaking out could be because of the other primordial serpent, Koth, who could have tempted him to become a Dark Wraith. Frampt and Koth in this game, we haven't met yet, but they kind of play a similar role, now that I think of it, to Sage Frake and Saint Urbane. Although the dichotomy is not quite as easy, because it's not quite as easy to point out who's the good one and who's the evil one. Everyone is just kind of trying to manipulate you. And real quick, that ring I just picked up is the Rusted Iron Ring. It's one that I really, really want to have before I do the Depths and before I do Blighttown. I confused it in an earlier episode with the Dark Woodgrain Ring, which changes how you roll and how the roll works in some cool ways, but it's not the one I was thinking of. The one that I was thinking of was the Rusted Iron Ring, which will let us move unhindered through the Blighttown Swamp, and I definitely am happy to have that. Now I can make this same precarious little drop, except I'm not going to take damage that time. Oh, took a little bit there. I want to top up before what's about to happen. That's about to happen. Wait, where is he? Oh, god damn it, I'm in the wrong direction. This is going to be fatal. I forgot which direction Stray Demon was in. Well, that is the lethal nature of fighting Stray Demon at this point. Stray Demon is a much, much more powerful version of the Asylum Demon who you fight as the tutorial boss for the game. You drop down from a tiny little hollowed out section of the floor, and you can see him actually in the very beginning of the game. I rotated my camera, but I didn't specifically mention him as a little hint for what was to come. Now, as soon as you hit the floor, as you fall down, you take a lot of damage. His attacks do a lot of damage, as you saw. That red magical explosive attack does a little over half your health. I think it's actually closer to 3/4 than half. But it's very easily dodged. And he has such a slow signpost for that attack that you can quite easily get behind him in time to dodge it. It's just you don't ever want to be caught out in front of him. All of Stray Demon and Asylum Demon's most lethal attacks happen in front of him, so you always want to be staring right down the barrel of his asshole. Unpleasant as that might be. Otherwise, it's a pretty easy fight. You just have to not die in the most dangerous phase of the encounter, which is the landing. You have to stick the landing. Even if the Romanian judges penalize you 4 points for not sticking the landing, you have to make sure you just pull through and do your best to dodge out of the magical butt-stomping sumo demon. Getting way off topic here. What was I gonna talk about with Oscar? Because I was not done with him. Well, I was done with Oscar. It was more that I wanted to talk about something that he inspired. What thought did he inspire, though? Okay. Oscar gives us a little bit of a parallel to Demon Souls. Not a solid story connection, but a parallel. Or at least he exhibits one. Because as he turns hollow, he goes berserk and attacks you. In Demon Souls, everyone coveted souls, because if you lost your own soul, you would eventually go mad, like the crestfallen Blue Phantom demonstrated back in the Nexus. He started off the game fairly lucid, maybe a little bit on edge and hostile, and then every time you'd revisit the Nexus, he'd get slightly more unhinged, until he's just a raving lunatic. Something similar in Dark Souls happens, except you replace souls with humanity. Death in Dark Souls, like I was saying, is kind of a transient concept. Death here costs you your humanity, but you can continue on as an undead and undergo a slow process of hollowing until nothing but an insane husk remains. This all ties into the namesake of the game. Dark Souls refers to the Dark Soul, the Lord Soul which was in possession of the furtive pygmy, you know, the one who was so easily forgotten, mentioned by... I'm just gonna call her Galadriel because she sounds like the narrator from the beginning of Lord of the Rings, who is in fact Galadriel. Galadriel? Whatever. And the furtive pygmy, if you remember, was the very small, gaunt figure from the intro cutscene, who looked a little out of place next to Gwyn and Nito and the Witch of Izalith. Humanity are supposed to be like tiny fragments of the original Dark Soul which the furtive pygmy held. The furtive pygmy, by the way, is an interesting topic in and of himself. He's also probably a bigger topic for down the line when we hit the DLC, but what you should know about him for now is that he is the progenitor of the humans. According to Koth, the Pygmy's goal was to use the Dark Soul, which we know from the Dark Hand, an item you get from the Dark Wraith Covenant, as something that had the power to sap humanity from others. Which is something that sounds similar to the life-stealing ability that Priscilla possesses, which is itself taboo. Oh my god, that was so dumb. I really should have been paying attention to where I was going. Steps a doozy. Oh, god damn it. 1 second. Oh, that's the kind of shit that causes me to... No! Oh my god, again? That one was sheer luck. I feel so completely idiotic. That's the danger of going off on long-winded rants where you're just autopiloting through the game. But that's the only way I can get through those rants and still play. Okay, where was I? Let's get this train back on track here. I was saying that the dark soul which the furtive pygmy possessed, which we know from a few item descriptions, and from the item which comes from the Dark Wraith Covenant, the Dark Hand, had the ability to sap the humanity of others, and the furtive pygmy was ostensibly trying to bring about the Age of Darkness, otherwise known as the Age of Man, at least according to Dark Lord Ka. And I actually think Petrus mentioned something interesting here
my guests have
that might
finally
relate
arrived.
to this. I can't
I
remember.
will be departing with them shortly, so I'm afraid I will be saying goodbye soon. It was a pleasure. Oh, hello. Miracles, I presume? Yes, I know. An undead mission? Regrettably, I cannot share that with you. But you are my pupil. Perhaps if you show your faith.
Petrus wants a show of faith from us. Let's give it to him.
Very well. I can surely tell you, of all people, undead clerics are given a mission to seek kindling. Kindling is the art of feeding bonfires with humanity. Through kindling, we shall one day be granted magnificent powers. Rhea is the youngest daughter of the good house of Thurland. Those young knights are her old schoolmates, but I'm not sure what to make of them. I'm afraid they may be a bad influence. Rhea is the youngest, but I'm Come again. The effectiveness of the teachings depend upon your faith.
Let's talk to the others because they might have some more insight. I know he didn't.
What have we here? You look awfully raggedy. Times are grim. The least you can do is look sharp. Don't you dare meet my lady like that. You might scare her off for good. Oh, you again. What business have you? I don't suppose we can help, though. We accompany my lady on her righteous mission. It is quite a chore, but I'm stuck with her. And Nico, too. I can't very well abandon them now. Oh, it's you. We're to leave momentarily. The catacombs aren't exactly my idea of a good time, but what can one do? I do hope we meet again, rare or not. Oh, it's you. We're to leave rare.
You are undead as well. Then we've no time to fraternize. Both of my mission and you no doubt have yours. We must not let this curse overcome us. Did I not explain the urgency of our tasks? Or are you so uncouth as to lack such judgment? By the looks of you, I should think not. Did I not explain?
Okay, that's all from her. She actually reminds me a bit of a more judgmental version of Maiden Astraea. Another parallel to Demon Souls. It's not necessarily a lore connection, just more of a trope or a running theme. So their conversation did actually shed light on the things that I wanted to talk about, which is pretty cool because I was a little worried that they were just going to talk about completely unrelated bullshit. They were talking about kindling the bonfires with humanity and the rite of kindling, which plays into this in a way. It all goes back to that heat and cold, life and death disparity thing, and how the Age of Man brought about by he who holds the dark soul which steals humanity in the Age of Fire, how all of that kind of ties together in the big picture. So the furtive pygmy purportedly wanted to bring about the Age of Darkness, also known as the Age of Man, which is the opposite of what Gwyn did when he linked the fire and began the Age of Fire, ruling over this era as if he were a god. And it's speculated that either the undead curse occurred because he linked the fire, or because the Age of Fire is reaching its end. And I can never quite trust Koth's account though, because all we have is his side of the story, about the pygmy at least. And he curiously has the same goal, to let the fire fade and begin the Age of Darkness. What does Andre have to say all about this? I don't think he has anything to say, but might as well check while we're here, before I run off to do other things.
Are mighty sturdy indeed, but every hunk of metal has its breaking point. If you notice durability running low, it's time to repair. You can ask a blacksmith like myself, or do it on your own with a grindstone. The nice thing about weapons, they never betray you, so pay them a little respect, eh? There are two types of weapon forging. There's reinforcement and there's ascension. Reinforcement is simple. It strengthens the weapon and nothing more. A simple task for any blacksmith. Hell, you could even do it yourself with a smith box. But ascension's a finer art. It alters a weapon's properties. Ascension is the territory of we blacksmiths. A smith box just won't do the trick. Start out with reinforcement. When that loses its charm, you can consider ascension. As you've noticed, this land is flush with the mad and wicked. You won't make it through the night without employing my services. You can forge armor just like you do weapons. Forging armor is even easier than forging weapons. Whether you forge weapons or armor first, well, that's up to you. But nobody wants to see you go hollow. So whatever you do, you'd better do it well. But nobody...
Yeah, I didn't really expect Andre to have anything super relevant to what I'm talking about to say, but I wanted to make sure I hit all of his available dialogue for the time being before I moved on away from him, because I don't know when I'm going to be revisiting him in the near future. I was saying the reason I don't trust Koth is because of course he's going to say that it's what the father of all mankind would want, to let the fire be snuffed out and begin the Age of Darkness. Of course he's going to try to spin it as the era where humans prosper. We don't really know... We can't verify anything that he's saying, and there's something about him that I don't completely trust. And we already know that all of the NPCs have their own agendas. They all have something to gain. They all have their own goals. So we're being manipulated all around, and Koth, I particularly get an untrustworthy vibe from. Of course, like I said, he's not the only one who we can't trust. Frampt, the other primordial serpent, isn't exactly going to be telling us the whole truth either. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. I'm talking about NPCs that we haven't even met yet. We won't be meeting for a little bit still. And those of you who haven't played Dark Souls are probably really, really confused as to what I'm talking about with Dark Lords and Frampt and Koth and primordial serpents and whatnot. Point is, nobody's really trustworthy in this game. You as the player are being manipulated by pretty much everybody. You have to sort through all of it and make the best decision that you can. And the decision that I'm going with right now is I'm going to continue to rend and tear and hew my way through the Darkroot Garden and explore around a little bit. And the next episode, we will tackle the Moonlight Butterfly, since we're already down here. I was coming down here with the intention of, ooh, Crystal Lizard! Man, I get distracted by shiny things so easily. I was coming down here with the intention of just doing a bit of upgrading and going after the Titanite Demon. But since we're down here, and we just got that crest shield from the Undead Asylum revisit. I'll come down here and mess around a little bit. Trying to remember my way around the lower paths into the basin. There's one path that leads out to the Crystal Golem area where the Hydra resides in the distance, and even further past that there's a little cul-de-sac area, and that is where we're eventually going to be accessing the DLC, but not yet. Don't want to go up that way. I do want to take care of this Black Knight. I think this will be the third one, and he can drop the Black Knight Halberd, the weapon that he's using, and it's a particularly strong one. It's actually an item that I saw recently in Summer Games Done Quick being used as the entire foundation of a speedrunning route. It's called the Black Knight Halberd route, and you start off with the Master's Key and you make your way from the Undead Burg through the shortcut in Hovel's Tower down here, and it relies on a huge amount of luck in actually getting the halberd to drop. It didn't drop for me. So it's really fast if you can get it to drop. The run is really quick. I don't think it's the quickest, but we are out of time for this episode. We will pick up with Darkroot Garden and then probably go to the depths later on. Thank you guys for watching. Take it easy. Have a good one.